Fuego Pizza presents SDP, the Steve Dangle Podcast, with your hosts, Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake.
Let's go!
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We're started, right, Jesse?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we're starting.
Great.
That's
Hi.
great.
Hey,
Hi.
listen. Welcome to Isolation Day. Who the hell knows? It's all, each day blends into the next. And in Canada, it's gray and rainy. Or if you're in Calgary, there's still snow on the ground.
Is
And
there?
Yes. Yeah, there is. Yeah. It'll snow in Calgary till July. Because it's what happens. No, ask anybody who lives in Calgary. They'll be like, it's July and it's 25 degrees. Later it'll hail. It's just a wild place, man. It's just crap.
As a city,
That way.
how do you rate Calgary compared to Toronto?
Oh, man. Okay. I will say this. The weather's better. I'll tell you what.
Weather's better in Toronto.
They don't. No. Calgary. And I'll tell you what.
Okay.
You get more days of sun in Calgary than you get anywhere else. And to a guy who I have to have windows, bright rooms. I paint everything I have white because I need brightness in my house. I'm not one of those people that can have like a dark house.
Uh-huh.
That was so key. It was awesome because it's never not bright. And in the middle of winter, as people from Calgary know, Chinooks goes up 20 degrees randomly one day in January, and you're like, wow, I can wear shorts outside. And then of course it hails in the summertime and you get some crazy storms. So so I say weather wins for Calgary. And how do I rate it against Toronto? Well, Toronto's my hometown, so that's a little unfair. But I got to tell you, there's so much going on there, and it's a young demographic. It's like the average age of a Calgarian is 35. Or at least
Wow.
35. So you think, like, it's a lot of people our age, young, vibrant, exciting, lots of new business ideas. And, like, it's just cool. It's a great city. And then here's the thing, on the weekends, I used to wake up, and I had that little car back then. And in 40 minutes, I was in the mountains.
Which car?
The little Nissan, the two-seater that I used to scare Steve.
Nissan. What Nissan was it?
It was a 350Z.
Just
Adam's
so the people know.
little bullet that he always drove the speed limit in.
And Steve definitely did not enjoy driving with me in that car.
Man, there was one night, like a crazy snowstorm night. That's when we recorded at your mom's house. There was all kinds of, like all the trees were down. There was
the ice storm. Yeah.
You drove me home in what I think was -4 minutes. Holy shit.
The thing about that car is that like the engine's got some power, but they're relatively cheap. And the cars are so light that they go really fast. And one of the things that you notice when you get into a performance, like it's low end performance, but you get into a car that's got some speed to it, is that whatever direction you point it in, you better be sure that's the direction you want to go.
Right.
Like with my pickup now, it's like it'll take some time. Maybe I need to make a split-second decision or whatever. No, with cars like that, it's like you're here and now you're there and there's no time to think. So you better make sure you're right.
So you need to be a good driver is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, no, not necessarily. Sometimes it makes you an asshole. But, but anyway, I loved scaring Steve in it because Steve used to get real scared, Jesse.
One of my favorite things about Steve is how he drives. He 2 hands on the wheel.
That's a 10 and 2, baby. 10 and 2.
One mouth out the window, usually. You got yelling at people, and you're also going at least 10 under the speed limit.
Yeah.
That is not... Have I ever driven you?
We've driven a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I can't even...
In the Leafs Nation car?
Yes.
You got to take that off?
The Mazda 6, baby.
Your little bumper sticker?
Or is it Mazda 3?
No, it's a 3.
It's a Mazda 3, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the bumper sticker is finally gone.
Yeah. Steve tried to take it off with a set of keys, which is great for your bumper.
You can still see some of the sticker.
And then we got like Gugon or something like that, and it wouldn't come off. It wouldn't come off. Like for my birthday, Mrs. Dangle got my car detailed. That was my birthday present.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was actually really good. And they got it off after like 4 years.
Yeah.
It was a LeafsNation.com. I haven't worked for them for God knows how long.
Was it their way of saying, don't forget, you're here forever?
It was, yes, basically. Your content is trapped here forever.
Trapped here forever.
And we're going to lay you off on New Year's Day.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, kind of.
You got laid off from Leafs Nation?
Well, I don't know. They were making cuts. Anyway, we don't need to get into all
You
that.
got laid off from Leafs Nation?
Wow.
We were on this show when you stopped working there.
I mean, Adam, Steve Dangle's expensive, So, what a dick thing to say. No, I understood.
Okay. Wow. Anyway.
I wasn't making original content for them because I couldn't. So, no, but it was okay.
Well, that's fair. If you're not doing that, then that's kind of hard to do. That's tough. That's tough for them to pay for. I get it.
I will say here, like I'll give a little inside baseball there. So Wanye Gretz, the owner of all the Nation sites, Oilers Nation being the mothership that started it all. So when I first got my job for Sportsnet, I had to call him up and tell him, like, listen, I can't work for LeafsNation.com anymore.
Right.
I got this new job. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
At some company you've never heard of called Sportsnet.
It's called Sportsnet. Yeah. So I called him up and I told him that, and I'd practiced this, and like I'd met him, like he flew me out to Edmonton. I got to see the Leafs win 4-0. James Reimer got the shutout.
Is that what you were calling it, Ed Money, the new Dubai?
Ed Money, the new Dubai. That's when. I don't know if Jesse was with the show yet, because someone had a giant, like a banner that wouldn't have even fit in this room, that said #Steve's Pee-Pee on it.
Whoa, no, I wasn't with the show at the time. No,
they came from
pre-JV.
Nova Scotia to Edmonton with a giant Steve's Pee-Pee sign. Anyway, so I didn't want to let Wanye down, because like he'd been very good to me, and like they gave me a gig and a little bit of money when I had none. That was one of the little income sources I had during the lockout. And so I tell him, I go, yeah, sorry, I got to leave. Got this new job, exclusivity, all that. Silence on the other end of the phone, and he just goes, no.
What?
Like, he's one of those fast talking business guys. He just goes, no. Here's what you tell him. And so he told me what to tell him, and I actually got to post stuff to LeafsNation.com for a couple years before they were. Yeah, it wasn't. None of it was new.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't have employed me any longer either. So
no, I'm not.
No ill will.
No, I just think it's hilarious that you get laid off from that. Like,
I mean, no, I wasn't giving him anything new. Like, I get it. I wasn't Mikey Stevens. What he's doing now.
Well, is he still? I know he's doing Yahoo and stuff too. Is he still with them?
Oh, frig, Mike, if you're listening, I can't keep track. I know he's with Yahoo Sports. I don't think he's exclusive.
And what kind of loser graduates University of Toronto early? Am I right?
Loser. What kind of loser?
Loser.
Did anyone listening to this see our stream, our NHL 20 stream?
I liked our stream. What was
ours?
Yeah, because I went off on a certain loser.
I have a question.
What?
I have a question. Do you enjoy those streams? Because it seems like you enjoy it at the beginning, and then by the end, you want to rip your eyeballs out.
Yes. No. Well, okay. So it
seems to work that way every time.
It's two-pronged. The one very obvious prong is I'm extremely competitive.
Okay.
In chill. Okay. I get mad. And you and Adam, friggin' Batman and Robin, and you take your turns being Batman and your turns being Robin. You just turn on me, and you just gang up on me while I'm trying to carry the team on my back.
We're just there to have fun, though.
Yeah, man. I'm there to have a good time. I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
No, you know what it is? I've done a bunch of these streams. I've with the podcast channel, with the Sportsnet channel, with my channel, and it's not my element. And boys, I'm sorry for taking it out on you. I'm frustrated. I've gotten, all the technical issues, and your mic sucks, and you're trying to talk to people while you're actually doing something, and
it is more of an art than people make it seem, right? Like,
I think, yes.
When people are talking about like, these streamers, just play video games and talk to people, it's really like
just stream
on it. It's
just stream.
Yeah,
just
do it.
Play video games.
Just
stream. No,
be entertaining and play a video. Here's the thing: being entertaining is hard enough. Now play a video game doing it and do it well.
Live broadcast from your home.
Yeah,
just do that.
Yeah, why don't you simply do it? Simply broadcast. Now, one thing I will say is, as someone who worked in landscaping and construction and Shoppers Drug Run and all that stuff, it's way more fun a lot of the time than
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't make it easy to do well on a level that you could make a career out of. That's the difference. I want to make that distinction, noted.
Yes, we're not comparing streaming to heart surgery. Or
one is more difficult and the other is heart surgery, and I'm sure a lot of people understand that.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of right? A lot of people get it.
I do have a question about that, and this doesn't speak
about
to
heart
skill or
surgery?
anything. No, are there more professional streamers in the world playing video games or heart surgeons?
Oh.
Like ones that can actually make a living doing it. You know what I mean? Because there are...
One has been around a lot shorter a time than the other. So heart surgery kind of has a
then heart surgery's got the edge?
Yeah, I think it has a head start.
See,
it's also a much more practical route. There's a direct route to heart surgery.
You can be a bit of a... You can be a bit of a bootleg streamer, though, like a sort of really low-budget streamer. I feel like there are... Yeah. But I feel like there are no bootleg heart surgeons.
No.
There are no... Well, here's a lesser-known heart surgeon.
Dr. Nick Riviera?
Yeah.
Inflammable means flammable? What a country. What's interesting about that is it would probably, for a lot of people, like Steve, how long have you been doing this?
Doing what? The streaming?
Not streaming, but like YouTube.
Oh my God. I had to remind Mrs. Dangle, actually. So I posted the LFR for game 3 against the Caps because I was on the other night. And I was floating around the idea of doing classic ones because they showed a game from 2004. I think it was game 7 against the Sens. And my wife goes, were you making videos back then? And I go, 2004? No. I go, I started after we met. You got me the webcam. She's like, well, when was that? I go, when was that? What do you mean, when was that? 2007. So anyway, I've been doing it for 13 years.
So
it is not a fair question, though.
Well, she forgot. But 2004 was before 2007, and that's when we met.
Steve, you, of all people, cannot be the one giving your wife a hard time for forgetting something.
Right?
I have a great long-term memory.
You can.
I have a horrible. I don't remember how the show began, but I remember 2004.
Right.
You wrote a whole book based on remembering things from 2004.
Yeah. Basically. Pretty much.
There was a reason I was asking this and hoping for a one-word answer, but that's not what I got.
No, it's never what you get, is it?
No.
No.
What do you need? What do you want?
You should know better.
You said 13 years, right?
Yes.
And you don't make what a heart surgeon makes. It takes a heart surgeon. Probably around the same amount of time to become a heart surgeon.
13
but
years
then at
school,
least, and tough, grinding, impossible school with crazy student debt. But at least then you make what a heart surgeon makes. And you are a heart surgeon, you get to say that. Because it takes streamers a long time to make anything, right? Like most of them. Oh, yeah. There are people with hundreds of thousands of followers who make nothing. Because
followers does not equal money.
No.
There's a ton of variables.
Well, because you could be the 50 millionth person doing Call of Duty, right?
There's we've talked about this before. Like if you meet someone, generally they'll just, hey, I love your stuff, whatever, just polite, cordial. But if someone gets just a few drinks in them, a few of them are a very thin layer away from just being like, what do you make?
Oh yeah, right.
And I've had that before. How much money you make? What is it? And then they explain to you how they make money. They YouTube explain, and they go, "Oh yeah, it's like per click. You get like X cents per." No, dude, that's not. I do not know how it works. I have no idea.
YouTube's exactly forthcoming with it.
No, and that's another thing. Like, dude, again, I've been doing this for 13 years. So I think I'm pretty competent at it, and I didn't know that YouTube Super Chat takes like 30%.
Yeah, you were talking about that. So you did a super chat the other day to raise money for the food bank, was it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't the stream wasn't for charity. Or sorry, the second one was. The first one wasn't. It wasn't explicitly for that. But we started to get all this money, and I was talking to the guys on the team, and I'm like, I don't know, what do you want to do with this money? We should probably give it somewhere. And at the time, food banks was, at the forefront of need. So we said, okay, we'll give it to the food banks, and we raised almost $1,000.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
yeah, and no, it was trying to remember what it was. It was a lot of money, and imagine my surprise when I log on and I see, money made during the stream, 467.
Right.
And I go, what? I have it set to be Canadian dollars instead of American. Maybe it accidentally reset and it's the exchange rate. No. So I didn't know this, but YouTube takes like a pretty substantial cut of all the money. So then the second stream, we ended up raising a little bit more on Super Chat, but I encourage people go to Food Banks Canada. It was either .com or .ca. And actually just today, about an hour before this podcast, I donated I think it was like, I don't know, it was roughly $650. But I encourage people to go directly to the site, and Mike Schmidt, made a big donation. Is it Mahesh?
Yeah. Mahesh,
made another big one. Yeah, and there were a few others as well. I think it ended up being like 1,000 the second stream, so that was good.
Okay. But it's better if they go directly, because then YouTube's not taking any of that money, right?
Yeah, and you get the tax receipt and stuff like that. Yeah.
Can you set up? Would you be able to, if you were going to do a stream like that? The thing is that when it's on the platform and it's right there, it's a lot easier for people to use, right?
Yeah, that's the problem.
But also, for anybody that doesn't know what Super Chat is, do you mind quickly explaining it? Because it's a concept I don't think that is as widely known as I think we would think.
Yeah, so it's weird. YouTube flirted with the idea of a tip jar for a while. They don't do that, but what they do instead is Super Chat. So if you do a stream and there's like 1,000 people in there, there's going to be a bajillion comments, and they're going to be difficult to see. So if you make a donation, doesn't matter how much money, it can be $1, it could be $50, it goes to the top. So Super Chat is basically, I guess, sort of pay to play. I don't know. It just pushes you to the top. Freemium. Okay. I don't know.
Interesting.
But it's obviously voluntary. So that's what it was for, and it was sort of meant as a I don't know, supplement to YouTubers' income, because some YouTubers were complaining that, a video will get flagged and then they appeal it and then they win the appeal, but
you've already got the views and you've lost the money.
Yeah, well, like if someone did that to my LFRs, like I got basically a 24-hour period, maybe less, to get those views, because it's news-based, and I make X amount per video, and if the first 15 hours or whatever it's demonetized, I basically get no money for it. So it was basically meant to supplement that. But man, YouTube takes a heavy cut. Some people were telling me I can appeal it, because if it's specifically for charity, I feel like they waive the fee or something. eBay did that. Remember, I got into it with eBay over the Easter Seals thing, and then they waived it and they gave me the full fee, and I donated the difference. YouTube hasn't gotten back to me, so I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Oh,
that's interesting.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, on Friday we streamed, that's how we got into this conversation.
Right.
Can you do a quick LFR for anybody who didn't see it about our game on Friday?
I don't remember. We did not win.
We played. We played Vegas. Some dudes on we were the Leafs. We played Vegas.
We played Pittsburgh, and we got smoked.
We're not talking about the threes. Wasn't fun.
No, threes was.
So we were in the game versus Vegas, and it was 3-3, I believe, up until the third period when they scored 2 to go ahead, and then the final
couple bad penalties.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Yeah. So listen, all right, we want to talk about, we want hockey to be a fast-paced sport and a lot of fun and high scoring, right? I understand that, but not at the expense of the integrity of the game. They were diving all over the place at the slightest touch from stick infractions, and then they got the puck and they held on to it, not even trying to attack. It was a disgrace. It was awful, and it wasn't hockey.
Talk about the Zach Hyman called back goal that would have put us up 2-1.
Oh, yeah.
What has happened to my sport? Am I right? Anyone who says what has happened to my sport, don't look through their likes. You'll be very disappointed in them. But I mean, generally speaking. But No, it was Zach Hyman just driving the net. He got shoved in nefariously by an unnamed defender. Wouldn't even show his face. He was masked like he was trying to avoid losing honor and getting a bounty in Red Dead Redemption 2. And then the goal got called back, and that, I believe, would have put the Toronto Maple Leafs, the good guys, up, and instead they lose. Disgraceful. What is Gary Bettman going to do about this? I want to know.
It was very realistic
really
to the point where if you touch the goalie, it's not going to be a goal. And one of our guys touched the goalie, so
it wasn't.
He didn't mean
it wasn't one of us controlling him either. It was the computer-controlled guy.
As it always is. What is Gary Bettman going to do about this? Leave a comment in the comment box down below what you think Gary Bettman is going to do about this. But that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really like to tell your friends what has happened to my sport.
I want to do a quick shout out because we've asked people to shout out people in their lives that are making kind of a small difference during COVID-19, what we've been seeing. And I just would like to read out this message. Is that cool with everyone?
Yes.
Kono Emo 16 reached out, and he's got a potato as his real name's Sean, but he's got a potato as his emoji. Hey, Adam, just wanted to shout out my mom, who is a healthcare professional in the region of Peel. She works in administration and is currently working with other administrators to coordinate the response to COVID-19. Specifically, she's making sure doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals are being properly equipped while serving the most vulnerable, particularly nursing homes. Not only is my mom working every day to stay up to the date on this ever-evolving situation, but she's doing it coming off a knee replacement surgery she had a couple months ago. Holy moly.
Wow.
She's supposed to be working full-time right now. She's not supposed to be working full-time right now, but she's doing it anyway through the pain and without regular rehab support that she was getting before the pandemic. She's always been my hero, but now more than ever, she is everyone's hero. So please extend a thank you to my mom, Barbara from Georgetown. Love the pod. Best. Sean, let's shout out.
Barbara!
Way to go there, Burb.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just awesome stuff. And that's
Steve
the story.
Eisenman playoff stuff, man.
Yeah.
On one knee, just because the team needs you, pretty much, to put it into stupid, nonsensical hockey terms.
Totally. Listen, let's do that. That's what this whole show's about.
Yeah.
Stupid,
as I started saying
things.
it, I'm like, nope, not the thing to say.
Well,
you're committed now.
I have to say, like, it's nice to hear these stories because it is stories that just go untold that we all sort of take for granted until, something like this happens, which none of us were expecting, none of us were prepared for, and it's very, very cool to see that stuff come up. So thank you so much for sharing us with that. What's that?
I got another one.
Oh, cool. Read it out.
If you want to keep it going. Someone asked me, any chance you could give pharmacists a shout out on tomorrow's podcast?
Did you tell them no?
I did. I said, who cares? No. Can you please give pharmacists a shout out on tomorrow's podcast? A lot is being said about nurses and doctors, which is great, but pharmacists are also at risk because of their work in the community. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. Shout out the pharmacists. Shout out basically anyone who's not working from home right now.
Right.
Because you're forced to. And I mean, it is really highlighting who's important.
Oh yeah.
And that's not to say if you're working from home right now, you're not important, but it's showing us like, oh, doctors should be compensated like kings and queens. Same with nurses, same with pharmacists, same with I'm starting to think
the absence of teachers has created I think people are like, oh man, my kid is a lot of work.
I saw a great meme about parents going, oh my kids, I can't wait for school to be back. And the meme was basically, no, you screwed up as a parent and now you have to lie in it. Which I thought was a little aggressive, but it wasn't my wife. My wife didn't make it. She's not she doesn't like memes and everything. I'm starting to think, listen, minimum wage is a thing and someone's going to be compensated the least. I'm starting to think people who work at the grocery stores shouldn't be that.
They're not right now. They've had their wages temporarily raised, at least in Ontario.
That's awesome.
Good.
Loblaws, Sobeys, I think TNT Supermarkets on that. I believe Metro jumped on that. Like the major chains, I think have all boosted it, and I believe managers as well. Although I don't know that for sure.
All of them.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly you know, and you say, well, then who brings the supplies? The truckers, and they deserve more and whatever.
Yep.
I think that you know, the reason that, see, when we do shout outs on this show, and this is just normal behavior, I'm not really worried about this, but we always get people who go, hey, how come you didn't shout out X? And that's okay. Yeah. Like, that's totally cool. I understand that. But if I were to sit here and list off a bunch of shout outs to every single worker, it sort of doesn't have any meaning and it becomes a blur. But if every show, if every show we can tell a personal story and just give you an insight into someone else's life, like Barb from Georgetown, you know, working on her knee, she's not having it rehabbed, and working, you know, big long shifts, and when she's not supposed to be working full time, gives you a sense of what people are going through on a personal level. And I can guarantee you that this is going to go on a long time. So we're going to have more than enough time to get to the stories that haven't been told yet. And I would encourage you to DM us them, because we'd like to really take the personal element, and especially like send them to me. My Twitter DMs are still open, and they're so much better now because that's all I'm getting. It's just amazing stories. We want to tell some of these. I think it's important. And instead of being upset with us for not telling every story on one episode, let's spread them out and really highlight somebody each episode, because we are grateful for what everybody's doing to keep this going. But I want to bring it down. Like, instead of pulling out, looking at the whole earth, I want to like jump into one situation and really kind of drive that point home. So again, thank you for that message, and thank you, Barb, for what you do. And let's talk about this, probably the most delightful
I don't get to do my shout out.
Oh, you got one? Oh, sorry, I didn't even know you had one.
To answer your question, Jesse, no. Adam, continue. Sorry,
go ahead, man.
I wanted to shout out the local grocery stores in my area, and mainly I think across all of Ontario, that are doing the 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. is only for elderly shoppers.
Yes.
I saw this morning there's quite a few people lined up to go inside for that hour of extra shopping. So shout out all the grocery stores for doing that for the elderly shoppers who can't really go in when everybody else is going in because they're at a higher risk.
That's right. And because they're older, you know that they were up at 5:30 anyway. So
it's mid-afternoon for them.
Oh, they've been in their clothes for 2 hours looking at their watch going, like, hey, can I go in the store? Open!
What is it about being retired that makes you go to bed at 7 and wake up at 4? I don't understand it, because I have to do that. Jesse actually does go to bed at 7. I go to bed at 8. Or maybe just Jesse's on Do Not Disturb, which is probably a smart idea anyway.
I get to bed by 7.
Yeah.
I'd never be able to do it.
You would. If you had, listen, believe me, dude, if your income counted on it, believe me, you'd do it.
Yeah. Paycheck.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how morning sports radio people do it.
It's tough. It's really a couple weeks of it. It's tough. No, you can't.
Well, I'm up on Twitter and I'm like, they're watching.
Yeah.
Right.
They're watching.
You nap afterwards, probably. And it's tough. I mean, any sort of morning radio or morning television or morning entertainment, like, it's the worst time of the day for most people, me included. Like, when I wake up, I'm not in a great mood, and I'm glad I'm not around anyone for the first hour of me being awake, because I probably wouldn't be the nicest guy and probably wouldn't be very, like, cheery. Kind of just zombie my way through the first hour of being awake. So the fact that they can be up and on it and have formed opinions about the game the night before.
The game that they may or may not have even seen.
Yeah. You do a lot of reading, right? You get up in the morning and you read and read and read and read in a lot of cases, or you have it PVR'd and you watch it, and you watch it quickly. So
that was always the thing that blew my mind about Greg Brady. I'm like, that guy's got to drive in from Ajax.
Yeah.
So, like, he's got to commute.
Yeah.
Like, what is he? I guess I would just listen to sports radio on the way in.
I don't know.
That's you. You know, like, the sports radio that's going to be on is going to be.
Greg, I worked with Greg. Greg stays up, man. It's crazy.
That's
he's got like an encyclopedic memory. Like, does not forget anything. And I think it was my first or second day there. We talked about the baseball strike in 1994, and I called it a lockout. And I don't know why I air quoted the strike. I said lockout. It was a strike, I believe. And he texted me later that day, and he's like, "Hey, man, just a heads up. It was this, not that." And he's like, "I don't want to correct you on the air or whatever like that, but you got to know that stuff."
Oh,
and I appreciated that.
Than I am.
No, I appreciated it, because you want to be. It's because you're talking to the hardcore sports fans, and I know what that's about. I'm wrong all the time, so you forget details and stuff like that. Anyway, the guy's that guy, it's a different world. Like in Scotty MacArthur and Mike Zigomanis and Landsberg and Koliakovo and stuff, the sports guys, and it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig to do every single
I'd love to see someone try. My nighttime is like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's where I get like my 8 hours of sleep, and then the rest of the day I'm up. So your like mid-afternoon would be when you're doing the morning radio show.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So you can stay up for the games. Like the morning when you wake up at 7 p.m. That's your morning, and then you go all day, and then you go to bed at 11 a.m.
Can I ask both of you?
Yeah.
How do you guys survive podcast days? Because you've already done that. You've done the morning show, and now you got to do this?
It's easier than you think.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you think. But okay, what time do you wake up in the morning?
It varies.
Okay,
let's say 8.
Okay, 8. So by the time we podcast in our day, it's 8 p.m. for you. So by the time we finish. So we start podcasting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? By the time we finish, it's around 4. We were up at 4. So we start podcasting at what would be 6 o'clock at night for you.
Right.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's
gross.
So that's, and then it finishes at 8, and we got to be like up, right? Because Steve, you've got all the energy in the world, and some days we do and some days we don't. So we got to fire up the engine.
Today I do. Today I do.
And I don't want to make it seem like there are people, like, to put it in context, this is not some labor intensive gig. So
there are nurses who work 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. Like this we're sitting here talking hockey into a camera.
With that in perspective, it can be tough. I'll tell you when it was really tough was when we used to do. I did BT, and then I would do the afternoon show, and then we would do the podcast at 7 p.m. at night.
Not even that. You do BT, then the afternoon. No, then your side gig as the Channel 1 on Rogers Cable.
Your World This Week. Yes.
And then sometimes the podcast before the afternoon radio show.
Yes.
Because we do that like noon, and then you go right to radio.
Yeah, so it would be, I would show up at work at 5:40. I want to say, and be on for 6:40, and then I would finish work at KISS straight at 7 o'clock at night. So it was just nuts. It was stupid.
Let's do podcast roll call. Steve here, Jesse here, Adam Brave. You were just Night of the Living Dead for like a full. What was that?
3 years.
2 years?
3 years.
It was crazy.
3 years.
I don't know how you did it.
Well, I think I did it because I was in my 20s. But I think have I talked about on the memory thing on the podcast before?
No.
Have I ever told you about? Okay, so after that part was over in my career, because obviously I don't know if you remember, but I chose to leave and pursue other things. Obviously, like what I'm doing right now. Yeah. And one of the things that came up randomly on my Facebook page during that 6-month interval when I was between contracts was. It was a TED Talk on sleep, and I'd never really thought, like, I'd wanted to look into researching sleep and finding out more about it. And the only thing in Toronto that was available at the time were these like sleep apnea clinics, which I don't have a problem sleeping, so I didn't want to take up their time doing that. But what I wanted to do was figure out a way to optimize. So I'm like, okay, I'll watch this video. Maybe it'll teach me something about what sleep is. And it tells you to you got to, you got to have your electronics off 30 minutes before. You got to have your room at about, the average human sleeps best, apparently, at about 18 degrees Celsius. That's what they said. When it's a little bit colder. Now, you can put blankets on, you can take them off. And I'm already hot as it is, so I like it even colder than that.
I haven't slept with a blanket in like a year.
Oh.
Because
I sleep without a blanket at all?
I sleep with a sheet, like barely that. I run too hot at night.
Yeah, me too.
You can relate, Adam. Yeah,
me too.
No, so I
run too hot all the time.
Hey, no, I have a huge problem every spring because this was my winter setup: 3 comforters and a 20-pound weighted blanket after Christmas. Oh, it's the best.
Do you wake up drenched?
Yeah. Do you? Are you a pool?
Yeah, there were some nights where it was pretty bad. But I
keep doing it. Just wake up wet.
Yeah, it's lovely though. I love it. It's like I'm so warm and cozy.
It's like in a lobster tank, just getting slimy.
I'm just safe. No, but I'm safe.
But I'm safe.
So your sleep apnea test.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this. I didn't take a sleep apnea test because I'm not wasting their time. That's silly. I'm not. I sleep great. It's just I didn't get enough, and I wanted to know how to maximize it. And what they said was, they're like, listen, these people that sleep, that say they sleep 3 hours a night, that's good for them, but it's horrendous for their health. And there are some people legitimately that have sleep problems and they can't. And that's a medical issue that they have to look at. The average person needs 8 hours a night minimum. That's what you need. And they said, here's what happens when you don't sleep. And if you want to have nightmares, find out what happens to your brain when you don't sleep. And one of the major things that they say that goes is your short-term memory. And yeah, right? So and this is when it's chronic. So for me, and this is going to sound dramatic and I don't mean it to, but there's very little about those 3 years. I'd say 16, 17, or 17, 18, 19, I guess, or 16, 17, 18, whatever they were, 2016, whatever. Whenever I started on breakfast television to whenever I finished, there's very little about those years that I can remember specifically. Wow. So, and I don't mean that I can barely remember my day-to-day. People will sometimes say, like, on the podcast, do you remember doing this? Like, I can barely remember our trips to Ottawa, our trips to London, our trips to doing, we do, the hockey game at cinemas and stuff like that.
You don't remember those?
I remember pieces, but I can't even remember. I don't know what I did for Christmas. I don't know what I did for my birthdays. I don't know if we celebrated Thanksgiving. I can't remember any of it. And that's the scary part for me, is that, like, I lost all that. And so there's in my memory, it's almost like it's like color picture, black and white for 3 years, and now it's been all color in my memories again. So yeah, it's a bizarre thing. And so yes, and they teach you, they're like, grind it out. Okay, yes, and it did great things for my career.
No.
But not at the expense of your health.
No, and you can't do that forever. And guys, I put on like 30 or 40 pounds. You can see it in the podcast videos. You can see me putting on the weight.
You've lost a bunch of weight.
I have, but that was because I was what time do you have to cook? What time do you have to eat properly? What time?
It screws up your metabolism too.
Totally. Yeah. So
sleeping helps you lose weight.
That's not working like that, and saying you're taking care of yourself too. Those are not synonymous. Those do not work together. If you're working 14 or 15 hours a day, it doesn't matter what you're doing. And unless you are like hardcore food prepper and can somehow fit a workout in, that isn't taking care. And I realize that's some people's reality, and I get that. But it certainly, for me, I was not taking care of myself. And I paid the price for it and continue to. So it's sort of one of those things where, yeah, it was kind of crazy. And at the time, you guys would make fun of me for it, and I thought it was hilarious or whatever. But looking back, I'm glad I did it, but I'm glad it's over. I'm really glad it's over. It's a crazy time. Anyway, I hope I didn't bore you.
We were concerned, man. We were concerned. Oh, yeah. We told you. You just don't remember.
No, I don't. I don't. I don't.
It's true, though. Yeah.
It's interesting to hear from your perspective, because just from the outside looking in, when you just outline the schedule and what you're committed to doing in a day 5 times a week, it sounds insane to any person, and somehow you did it for 2.5 years, I think.
And you watched every Leaf game.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to hear from your perspective, what's going on in your brain, to talking to us now.
And I was also an idiot, and I would stay up and watch the end of the Leaf game because I had to know for the podcast. Now I don't do that. I don't do that. I can't watch every Leaf game.
Can't.
I watch the first period. I'll catch the rest of it the next day. I'll read a lot. I'll get educated. I'll watch. I can do that, but I can't watch it that night. And that's part of taking care of yourself that I just didn't know. But yeah, it's funny.
PVR is your best friend.
Yeah. Well, and let me just say this. Jesse tried, Steve, to institute, and imagine how well this would have gone.
Oh no!
Jesse was like, he was the producer, right? We had a national show to worry about.
Oh no!
And he was like, "Listen, I need you in here at like 2:30 so we can plan this show out."
Oh my god!
And every day at 2:55, I walked in and said, "I'm sorry, man. I had to keep sleeping, man."
We got 5 hours of radio to do. We want to plan out the show.
You wanted him in studio for 2:30?
Well,
we had to go live at 3.
Yeah, we had to have the show done. We had to prep the show.
We had to put together a show.
Yeah.
Wait, the show Wait.
No, this is when we did afternoon, Steve.
Yeah, so this was 3 to 7.
3 to
Jesse
7.
was the producer, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it wasn't like, here's the thing. The worst part about it, and I'm sorry, Jesse. The worst part about it is it wasn't like Jesse didn't have so much shit to do. Like, so much. The system we had was clunky as hell. He had to upload to 8 different radio stations the same break, the same cart, they called it.
Yeah.
So it's like, imagine uploading an audio file that's like a song length 8 different times just for that one break to run. And we had to, would you have to do that? Over the course of the show, we'd have
tedious.
So it's 8 times
30,
8, so it's 16 times 8. What is 16 times 8?
That's
16 times
too
8.
much.
So 128 times or something in a day, something like that.
It wasn't like it uploaded right away either. It was like it took time.
No. And sometimes I'd batch them all, and then the engineers would get mad at me because they're like, "You clogged up the entire Rogers radio system for Canada." But I'd be like, "I did all my work, and now I just sit here and watch it go." Well, you can't blame me.
Yeah, no,
no, stop it.
So I would do the top hour of the Adam Wilde show thing would run, and then I would do the top hour. And I'd have would have just woken up from a nap. So I was really groggy every day, but you had to turn it on, man. Like, turn it on, let's go.
And you lived across the street. So you
you
literally walked out of bed.
Yeah. I rolled off the couch or out of bed and then walked over and was there in 5 minutes. And then I would say to Jesse, I'm like, okay, I think I want to do this for our first major content break. So I'm going to tease that. And then in the middle of that, while I'm putting that break together, then we'll put together the rest of the show, which is 1,000% never the way to do that. And we don't do that now with Virgin Mornings. Ever. I know I'm notorious for being late, but the amount of times I beat Adam to the studio when he lived across the street was mind-blowing. I picked him up. Yeah.
You up a couple times.
Yep.
You lived across the street.
I know.
So it's basically I pulled a U-turn.
It was bad.
My God.
Listen,
but you were dying. You were slowly dying.
It's not your fault. It was just
it was.
I gotta work hard,
Yeah.
It's I want to get things done, and it's the right mentality. It just just executed in the wrong way. There's something to that, just working hard. Like that's something that's a philosophy everybody should have.
Sure. I worry about the way success is viewed and success is taught. Like I think I've talked about this before. There's a new Kevin Hart produced, Kevin Hart documentary on Netflix. And he paints himself in a very, I don't know, the way I would probably paint myself if I made a documentary about myself. It's pretty positive for the most part, but he shows his screw ups and he shows, here's the time I wake up and here's me at the gym. But like, he looks like death warmed up on a lot of days. Like
oh wow.
And this is a guy who like he's got like an athletic deal, like he's in amazing shape. He's possibly the most successful comedian financially the world has ever known.
Of all time, yeah.
Well,
of all time.
Maybe Seinfeld.
No, well, yeah, there's that guy. But
depends on how you're counting the money. Yeah.
Top
five. Depends how you're counting the money. But like, I mean, you give Kevin Hart a couple more decades like Seinfeld's had, and he probably passes him.
Probably.
But he looks like death warmed up. He tried to fight his friend who's like twice his height and 3 times his weight. Like I did not come away from his documentary about himself going, this is how you should live your life if you want to be successful.
Yeah, because you wonder about the decisions people make when they're so sleep deprived.
Yeah,
right? They say when you drive sleep deprived, it's like you've had 2 glasses of alcohol. I think it is if you're driving on like 4 hours or less of sleep, something like that. So yeah,
well, and I know you guys have. I mean, sleep deprivation is now a part of the schedule, Jesse. But like, you know how you feel when you're tired. Everybody knows.
Oh yeah.
And you can imagine like nurses and doctors, anybody that does shift work. If you're a cop, if you're working, fire departments have 24-hour shifts, which is why they get time off because it's working 3 days in one.
Mm-hmm.
The system.
You hold on,
Sorry.
but let me just say this: the imagine enjoying nothing. So like if and I'm not kidding. Imagine not being able to enjoy things to their real fullest. And like I'll tell you, it had an effect on my relationship with Caprice because like if a Friday night came out and she was like we're 26, 27 years old, and tough. She's like, hey, do you want to go out? And I'm like, fucking no way.
Yeah.
No way. And if I did, I was miserable because it was like 7:00. I'm looking at my watch going, I want to die. I'm so tired. And so all you end up doing is talking about how fucking tired you are. Yeah. And it's so boring for people to listen to. It's so not what they want to hear, especially from someone who doesn't do anything important for a living. Oh, you broadcasted. You talked all day. You asshole. Shut up. And it's sort of, no one wants to hear that.
It's when you're younger, maybe you pregame or something before a party, and there's always someone who takes it a little too far and they end up barfing nice and early in the night.
You mean a good time?
A great time. By the time you get to your late 20s, people are just falling asleep before 9:00.
Yeah. The pregame is the activity, right?
Yeah. Oh,
everyone
you don't go to the club.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't even. Yeah. You're passed out from sleep deprivation an hour before. Yeah. A few years ago, you're talking about getting in a car.
Oh yeah.
To go somewhere, not to drive. But
yeah, I mean, there were bars we didn't go to till like 12, 1:00.
That's bananas.
Yeah, it's like, we wouldn't get there too early. That's lame. Now it's like, let me get there early before all the people are there.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with all these sweaty people. No.
Which is great. It's the two best times I think I've ever had at a bar. We showed up extra early, and Adam, both times I think you were there, and both times Signal Hill was playing. One was in Toronto and one was in Nova Scotia.
What Signal Hill?
I didn't go to Nova Scotia, but I was there for the remember I didn't come to the bachelor party.
That's
there.
right. I'm an idiot. But I think you were at the Toronto one. So Signal Hill is Adam, you're better at this.
They're relatively, as far as bands go, cover bands go, they're one of the more successful groups in the country, and they are able to play basically any song ever. And
like a lot of that, like Barrett's Privateers.
Yeah.
1778. I wish I would.
And they play East Coast beer drinking music, and
which is great for
fun because everybody that goes to their show is into it too. So it's easy for you to kind of jump into it. They've got great presence. They're a great sounding band. They're lots of fun. I don't know anybody that goes to a show like that and doesn't have a good time. So Signal Hill would be, and Signal Hill is a hill in Halifax, by the way. It's a gigantic, it's where the fort was.
Grace O'Malley's is like a bar in Toronto. It's mostly, I don't know, would you call it a student bar?
Ryerson.
It's
party bar.
Mainly Ryerson students, yeah.
It gets taken over, but we went there for like dinner once, and we ended up staying, and Signal Hill was playing. Oh. And so we had prime seats for them. But then for my bachelor party, we go to the lower deck, which I now know is legendary. At the time, I didn't really know that. And I'm like, oh, their fish and chips is amazing. Mm-hmm. Best fish and chips I've ever had. Again, we went there for dinner. Then, and this is after we saw them in Toronto, Signal Hill gets up on stage. And I go, boys, this is amazing that you planned this. And they were all like, yeah. Totally. They had no idea. They had absolutely no idea Signal Hill was playing. Yeah. And then we had a very good time, and I ran into a guy who I now tweet all the time, Graham Benjamin. He's a reporter out in Halifax now.
Right?
Global Halifax. And he's like, oh, yeah, watch your videos, listen to the podcast. And he's like, let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a shot because it's your bachelor party. I go, yeah, sure, but you got to take a Steve shot.
What's a Steve shot?
So he buys me a tequila. And what's the stupid thing you're supposed to do? You have salt in your hand, ritual. I never, especially when I got drunk, I didn't have the patience for all that.
No,
so
just
I go,
take the shot.
Yeah, so I go, here's what you do. You take the shot, and then my party trick, which now that we're in a pandemic, I would never do. My party trick is I would take the shot and I would just eat the lemon whole. Like I would just eat it like rind and everything, just mangling my teeth, I'm sure.
Oh, no.
And this poor guy, he's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Let me buy you a drink. And I'm like, eat the lemon.
Psycho.
And then,
that's disgusting.
So I wake up hungover the next morning. And this is in the RV because we all went to RV, 7 guys packed. Mm-hmm. For my bachelor party, I checked my phone. And I'm like, let me just be safe. And I do a quick name search. And I just see him go, I can't believe Steve Dangle maybe eat the lemon.
Adam, you probably don't remember this, but one time on the afternoon show, we had a we had a call-in topic about the thing people don't know about your job or your industry. And one of the people who called in was a bartender who told us that lemons are probably the dirtiest, most infected thing in a bar. Because they throw them on the floor, they don't wash them, they just cut them and throw them on the side of your drink.
Yeah,
you know?
This is disgusting. I was an animal. Steve, it was disgusting. No, I know. I haven't done that for many years, but it was disgusting. Like,
Steve, have Jesse and I ever told you the story about the time, the one thing when we work together every day? I've seen Jesse pretty much every day for 6 years, but the one call that we will always be mad at ourselves for not nailing. Have you ever told you about this?
Tell me. Hit me.
Well, Jess, you're going to have to help me with this one because it's heartbreaking.
Go ahead.
So I believe the contest was, and the Chainsmokers song Paris was huge. We were staying in Paris. Get away from your parents. Remember that song?
The one with Halsey?
Oh. Yeah. Was that with Halsey? No. That was
Wasn't that the
Closer.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking Closer. My bad.
Yeah. But
Paris and parents.
Yeah.
Things that rhyme. Listen,
it made them millions of dollars. Good for them. And they put on we saw them at the iHeartRadio Jingle Ball a couple of years later, and they were great. So, anyway, so the idea is you get to win a trip to Paris to see them.
But you have to go with your parents.
No, you do not have to go with your parents.
Okay.
And we call the winner, who I believe had text messaged in or emailed in or something, Jesse. I forget how we did it.
Yeah.
But we got them on the phone. And it was like 4:00 in the afternoon, and she sounded like she just rolled out of bed. So I could relate to that. And I was like, hey, just wake up. And she's like, oh, it's night here where I am. And we were like, really? It might've been later in the show. Might've been 6 or 7, whatever. And we're like, where you're from? Like, where are you?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I'm in Paris. And we said, oh, that's cool. And then we ended the call.
Yeah.
And
we were sending her. The contest wasn't to send them to Paris. It was to see the Chainsmokers in Toronto.
Right. Okay.
But we called the girl who won this contest to see the Chainsmokers in Toronto, and she was currently staying in Paris.
In Paris.
And we didn't make reference to their biggest song.
No.
That has the line about staying in Paris.
And she was with her girlfriend because her parents were back home, so she could have been getting away from her parents.
Oh, my God. What's worse?
We were just like, oh, that's great. Anyway, congratulations.
Congrats, you've won these Chainsmokers tickets. You're staying in Paris right now. We made no reference to it.
We immediately, after we ran the call, both of us looked at each other and went, we fucked up. Like, we
didn't play the song. We didn't reference the song. Nothing.
What's worse than those moments you just can't get back?
Oh, that's one that will always stand out. I'm like,
I've done that. I've had a miserable week work wise, like because we did the yeah. Well, just okay. The stuff I've been putting out, most people have been like, hey, whatever.
Your Harry Potter video was great. That was fun.
Sure, yeah, it was great. But I know the mistakes I made, right? Whereas other people, they just sort of brush it off. Thanks, Jesse. They just sort of brush it off. But for me, it's a fuck. Like it's what did I do? I think I accidentally left a first take in for the video that I uploaded yesterday.
Okay.
So it's 2 takes of me saying the exact same thing.
I thought it was just you doing Stephen A. Smith.
No. Yeah. Now, you know I love Molly Weasley. But
that's something you can never because you can't edit videos once they're up on YouTube. They're just there.
And people go, "Well, just take it down." No, it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
Too many people have seen it. So and I don't get that back, and now that's up forever. Like the Nick Robertson is a forward one. Imagine if I had deleted that instead of. Now it's a thing.
One of the best things that's ever happened. Right. I just love that. No, does not die.
No, and the trade tree video I uploaded for Pronger, I said twice in the video, it was Pronger getting traded to Edmonton, which it's the opposite. He was traded from, and everyone watching knows what I meant, and I don't even think anyone even called me on it, but I was just like, fuck, like you don't get it back.
Right.
It's up now. It's the worst.
But,
it drives me insane.
But then you like take a look at your life and you're like, oh, I had 1 million of those and I survived.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know?
I handle them way better than I used to.
Right.
It used to be several hours of staring at the computer angry. And now I swear very loud once and I go about my day.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's sort of like, it's sort of like one mistake makes you feel like crap, but 1 million mistakes, it's sort of like, well, I've made them before. I'll make them again. The sun will come up tomorrow, you know? And that's, I mean, that used to be like that about radio. If I screwed up, I would get mad. And it used to be able to, like, way back in the day, throw my whole show off. And now it's like, well, if I screwed up, whatever, let's just keep going, man. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like you do your best. You're performing live. Shit happens.
Depends on mood. I mean, last show, you guys brought up one small thing about the Leafs.
That was a bad rumor, by the way.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like moving on to other topics, and I could not get past it, and I was willing to yard sale the whole show, yell horrible things about the team that I cheer for, shit on Kyle Dubas for something that he's not even behind.
No,
Didn't even
not
do.
yet. Not
Didn't
yet.
even do, and sounds like maybe hasn't even considered doing. Like,
Has that come out? Has there been any follow up to that story? 'Cause
I haven't
could-
heard
none.
a single thing.
Yeah, I didn't
I
think
haven't
so.
heard a single thing. All I heard about was that Alexander Barabanov guy. That's all I heard about.
Yeah, which is funny because you said you did make a salient point throughout that. I got lots of hockey stuff to talk about, by the way. You did. One of the things is like, talk to me when you're going to sign a defenseman. And here we are. Yeah, we're going to sign another forward. And it's like, it's always about these forwards. Like, when are we going to find a defenseman here?
Yeah, I don't mind the signing forwards. I don't.
But defense
they
would
gotta
be
be
nice
cheap.
too. Yeah.
A defenseman would be better. But if you're gonna get a forward, let it be a guy like Alexander Barabanov, who is, you got to take a flyer. Like, that was one of the things I gave the Oilers kudos for in the summer. And this was when I still thought they were doing things badly. But they got, who was it? It was Nygaard, and there was another guy. Haas, Gaten Haas. So, like, they were just taking flyers on these European players. Go get a guy like Alexander Barabanov, who's going to be cheap and may end up being very good. Don't sign Kyle Clifford to $2 million for 3 years.
I feel like you could find Kyle Clifford in the KHL. Maybe not his attitude and his personality, which is worth money, given, but not $2 million worth it.
It's some teams can allocate those resources to that sort of player. The Leafs
cannot.
Who do need a player like Kyle Clifford cannot do that.
Yeah.
They cannot do it.
Yeah.
They need a competent defense so much more than they need a player like him. And they do need a player like him.
100%. 100%. So hopefully they can find, because I like Kyle Clifford a lot. I really like him.
Sure.
I just don't know how they keep him unless they pay him the same as what he's making. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, because this is like the most adorable story ever. Tomáš Kaberle, I'm sure you guys saw this.
Yeah.
And I know Jesse saw it. But he was talking to the CBC, and his wife is the owner of an Italian restaurant in Toronto, quite popular actually, Quanto Basta. And he is the guy who's their delivery guy now. So he's the one driving around, because obviously everything's closed in Toronto except for you can order things in. So he goes around the city, and 42-year-old guy who's made millions and millions of dollars, and he is out there supporting his wife and dropping off her dishes to people's houses so they can have something fun to eat that night, which I think is so cool.
Goals.
I love it so much. I love this story so much.
So here's the fun quote.
He was always a playmaker.
He said, yeah, he was always with the assists. He said, customers routinely start giggling or take pictures or look at him and say, I know you from somewhere. And then he said, this is a direct quote, I've got repeat customers asking for me, which is just kind of funny. One of our customers, I made their son laugh, made their day and stuff like that. So that makes me happy. And
not because he's Tomáš Kaberle, because he made like a funny face at the kid.
Yeah. And Julia Kaberle said, listen, it wasn't that he wasn't offering his services, but she's like, you need to get down here and help me out. And she said, I kind of pushed him a little bit. Hey, like, please, can you help me out? It's getting so busy. And he said, absolutely, anything to give this a go. So I think that's pretty cool. What an adorable story.
I had no idea he lived in Toronto. Like, this was his base. I thought he would have like gone home or something.
That's an underrated story with, because we had the barely real story about Toronto being a difficult place to play, but so many of the, especially European players, but some of the Western Canadian, Swedish. Sundin is the famous case where, he's a very private person. He's like Jerome McGinley in that regard. He likes to disappear. Mm-hmm. But like Kaberle still lives in Toronto. I believe Antropov lives in Toronto. Like they didn't say, hey, Nick, we'll give you a job at the OMalleys. Come on over from Kazakhstan where you're from. Like, no, he lives here now. I think Ponikarovsky still lives here. Darcy Tucker is not from the greater Toronto area. He lives here.
Kamloops.
He's
no.
That's where he played. I think he's from Alberta.
Oh yeah.
I want to say Edmonton.
Red Deer, one of the two.
Yeah,
but he's the biggest Toronto homer there is right now.
Oh yeah,
that plane ride we had with him was intense. You want to be out on the ice.
Did you guys watch the replay that Sportsnet put up last night? The Game 7 with Toronto and Ottawa.
No. I regret it. I should have watched it so I can make an LFR. I'm gonna start trying to do that. Not promising.
Just ask for a copy of it from Sportsnet and do one anyway, dude. You should do it. Yeah. Because first off, the Sens goaltending is so bad. It's not fair.
Who was in that?
Patrick Lalime.
Yeah, Patrick Lalime, and then Michael Prosick or something. It was like, I forgot you existed.
Lalime was not a bad goalie.
Yeah, except for the playoffs.
Oh,
not a high performer in the playoffs. No, I mean Ottawa was a better team but Ottawa was a better team than Toronto that year, and they beat them 7 out of 8 times. Like, it was ridiculous.
Toronto. I want to say Ottawa finished higher in the standings in the regular season for, was it every Battle of Ontario?
Most of them, yeah.
There was one where the Sens were second, the Leafs were 7th. The season series was 7-1 for the Sens, and the Leafs swept them.
Yeah. Well,
it was ridiculous.
And here's the funny part is I watched it, and first off, Darcy Tucker is just an animal. And so much fun to watch play. I forgot how much fun that team was to watch play because first off, it was a different style of hockey. The game has completely changed. But there's an attitude that Darcy Tucker has. And when we talk about that famous trip to Boston where the Leafs got killed, and he's on the bus afterwards with all of us, like fans, and we were there to spread the word about the trip, influencing, I guess. But there were winners on that trip, and he holds court, and there's 40 people around him on that bus. And he's talking about what he would do if he could just get into that dressing room and get into those guys' heads. And he's like, they don't know. They don't realize that this is it. This is it. This might never happen again. This is it.
And he never won.
Exactly.
You understand how professional athletes get to that level. Like the mentality that he had, just that fire and that passion. Normal people don't have that. That's a certain intensity where you're playing like the pinnacle of the sport and you get it.
Do you remember the pen?
Yeah.
He had this pen. I was just looking for one. He had this pen in his hand, and he was just sort of like looking down and just playing with this pen in his hand. And he was talking about this Bruins fan that was chirping him because he had the Leaf scarf on.
Yeah.
He had this Leaf scarf on, and like I guess the fan had no idea who he was. And like the whole time I'm listening to him, but I'm looking at this pen, and I couldn't help but think, is he picturing that pen is that guy's neck?
Yeah.
He's getting texts from his kids like, Dad, don't do anything stupid.
If there's angry, like people get angry, that is I wouldn't even call it a rage because it was very, very much under control.
Mm-hmm.
But you knew when you walked beside him that he was like, you think fans Darcy Tucker is a Leaf fan. He was ready to he wasn't going to snap. He wasn't going to do anything, but there's a fire in there, and you can't call it rage because rage is uncontrolled. You can't call it, I guess it's a version of anger, but it's this, I would like, when a flame
confidence.
When a flame is so hot, it's blue.
Yes.
It's like a blue fire. It's like one of those. It's just like and one of the things that I noticed about that game when I watched a little bit of it last night, the Senators were then a high-flying, fast, goal-scoring team.
Should have killed the Leafs every time.
Should have killed the Leafs. The Leafs were grizzled, older, very expensive. There was a lot of money on that team.
Had a goalie.
And were tough as nails.
Yeah.
It seemed a little bit like, and I hate to say this, the Leafs have transformed a little bit, at least based on the last few playoff series, transformed a little bit into what that Ottawa team was. And the Leafs back then are the Bruins now. And
without the regular season success, though.
Without the regular season success. Yeah. Yes. But let me say this. That's not necessarily a bad thing because the Leafs fell off. They got older. There was a salary cap. That nucleus of the Sens stayed together. They added Danny Heatley, and they went to the Stanley Cup final 3 years later. And
Jason Spezza turned into a superstar.
Like an absolute
People forget
monster.
how good he was, man.
A monster. And so it's sort of one of those things where it was sort of like, oh man, I see a lot of parallels between that young Senators team and this Leafs team. But which is sort of like at first you're like, damn, like maybe they do need to get separate. Or you could just do what Ottawa did, stick to the plan. 3 years later, they're in the finals.
Yeah, they learned.
That's what'll happen. But they did learn, Jesse. Exactly. Yes. So it was interesting to watch. It was a good watch. And Doug Gilmour apparently had to watch Game 6 of the 93 Eastern Conference Final for the first time.
Wow. Really?
He watched it. He's talking about it on Instagram too. And I follow Doug and because I'm a homer, big Doug Gilmour homer. And it's fascinating to hear his thoughts. Sportsnet's got a video. I would encourage you to check it out. It's just fun to watch. But
I did want the Kerry Fraser tweet.
What did he say?
Someone was tweeting about like conspiracy theory and all it was rigged or whatever. And he was like, there's no conspiracy theory. It's just a horrible miscall on my part.
Wow.
Like he cops to it.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
He fully admits. He's like, oh yeah, I blew it. I missed it. You know, and like in an era where nothing was called. I mean, a high stick that draws blood. That's the line. And he missed it.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I didn't know he actually, I thought he just was very coy about it. So I have a question for you with regards to what we're talking about in the content of this show a little bit. You know, it's a sports network's job to report on sports stories. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot other than finding out that, you know, teams announcing and players announcing that they've tested positive for COVID. And I know that, you know, James Dolan, who owns the Rangers and the Knicks, also just recently tested positive. And I'm just wondering, for us, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to keep reporting that stuff. I know that, like, people message me with stuff I missed sometimes after the show. Like, hey, you didn't bring this up or whatever. And I'm just wondering, and I'm just throwing this out there as an open question, because everything's up in the air right now. We don't have the answers to a lot of this stuff.
Pretty much everything is up for debate.
Everything. Is that something that we need to bring up? Or do we just assume that, you know that, or you heard about it? Because to me, it's like, hey, that's someone's private medical information. And obviously that's why names aren't being released. And I don't know what we can say other than, hey, they tested positive and that's the end of that story.
Specifically the reporting of people testing positive is what you're asking?
Yeah. Like, do we need to bring that up on the show? Is that something, like, unless there's an actual story behind it? Like the James Dolan one, it's just, he's the head of the Yankees and Knicks Rangers and Knicks. And he tested positive. And we have a second Colorado Avalanche player. And I believe there was a second Ottawa Senators player. But, like, other than, you know, please continue the isolation, we should expect that there are going to be players, just like there are normal people, testing positive for this.
Yeah, the specific ones, like James Dolan is very important, influential, notable person.
Sure.
For the news to come out that he has it, to me, in terms of news, that's relevant.
I think for us to comment on that news, there's nothing to comment on.
Oh, yeah. We don't
have an opinion.
I hope he gets better. Like,
right. That's my point, though. Like, where do you even go with that, right?
Yeah. We can't have a discussion. There's no round table about, hey, this guy has corona.
No, I would say what I don't understand is a second Colorado Avalanche player has tested positive, and we don't name them. So, like,
it's their right to not name that, right? It's their
right. Well, okay. So if you're not going to name them, though, I don't need to know that there's a second player. Like, what is I don't understand the relevance of that.
I think it could serve a purpose, though. But continue your point. But then we can come back to this.
What's the purpose?
The purpose is for some people who are still not taking it seriously. The purpose is
that's
the
fair.
purpose. I think There are people that don't take things seriously until notable people get things. And you know what really turned the corner on COVID for everybody?
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Isn't that stupid?
Tom Hanks, Rudy Gobert, maybe.
And
to an
the NBA being canceled. Until then,
NBA being canceled.
Nobody was ever. I think in Canada it was a little different. We were a little more on top of it, but not much more.
No.
And then in the States, it was sort of like, yeah, we've heard all this before.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden, oh no, we're not having any sports. Okay, now you have our attention.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks has it. Oh, Forrest Gump has it. Now it's serious.
Literally,
right.
The South Park episode. Tom Hanks. Oh God, everyone really likes him. All we needed was for Beyonce to get it. No, everyone really loves Tom Hanks and Beyonce.
Right. It's good for naming these people is good for awareness in the news. I 100% agree with that. Because Adam, you said something when this was all starting up, and we actually started to comment on it. You said something interesting. You said the majority of us are going to end up getting it in some form.
Yes.
Whether it's serious or not, whether it might just be you're carrying the virus, but you don't show any symptoms, but the majority of us are going to get it. And you still think that holds true, right?
It's a mathematical. It's as close to a mathematical. It would be improbable if it wasn't that way. Let's just put it that way. And you ask any health professional, it's just such a. It's such a the way it works. And again, I don't know how it's a form of pneumonia, right? Like I don't know how pneumonia works, but I can tell you that you talk to any health professional, and they will tell you, yeah, it's like they said. Estimates vary. In Canada, it was something like 70%, they said. In the States, they're like, well, no, it's like more like 40 to 60. Well, that's a huge chasm in the States.
Also still high.
That's like 50 million people.
Right.
50 million people one way or the other, right? And that means that bare minimum, if with 330 million people or whatever the States has, that's 120 million people will get this. That's a lot of people. So, and it's so infectious that, of course, it will be spread. The one thing is, I might have had it already. You might have had it already. Steve might have had it already. And none of us could show symptoms.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know.
I want to go see my parents. Neither of them have symptoms. I don't have symptoms. But if they have it and give it to me, and then I get infected by it, like I'm not asymptomatic, I actually get hammered by it. Or even worse, it goes the other way around. I give it to them. Like, this is the whole point of self-isolation, right? Like you can carry this thing and not. No, Rudy Gobert. Or no, it wasn't Rudy Gobert. What's his name? The other guy in the Jazz? Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell, Canadian.
Oh, is he? Yeah. So he had it, but was asymptomatic.
Right.
Right. So this is the crazy thing about it. And if you're lucky, you're asymptomatic. If you're not lucky, you end up in a hospital. By the sounds of it, man.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
It's messed up. They and they're still. It's mostly good. It's mostly good, but like again, like Mrs. Dangle and I walked by just a straight up basketball game, like a full blown basketball game, and it was kids, and kids are going to be kids. Like you can't tell kids.
Well,
to
those
take
kids
seriously.
have parents, and those parents can tell their kids to stay inside.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And in fact,
and there was
we're
a
not here to lecture, though.
Yeah.
There was a lady on the local like dog park Facebook group, like taking pictures of the signs that say you can't be there anymore, like a nanny boo boo, and like going in anyway. Like, right?
Right? It's the COVID tough guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not the reason I brought this up is because I'm figuring out too, as we all are, on Virgin Mornings and every show and everything, we're all sort of figuring out what the new normal is in terms of content, right? Because this is a hockey show, and we like to talk about hockey. But it's funny because thank goodness that we've got the journalists that we do, because I do want to run through this list. This is a list that James Myrtle put together for The Athletic. 15 players who might have played their last game.
Oh,
wow, that was
fun,
man. The list of players who, this is just a quick aside, I'm not trying to hijack it, but there's a list of players.
13 years ago, I asked Mrs. Dangle, and then I was like, you can't remember?
What? There's a list of players coming out of the full season lockout, 04-05, and it's star-studded.
Yeah.
The list of players who just never got their final season.
Yeah,
so
Brian Leach
who do we got?
with the Leafs. Makes me sad.
No, but he ended up playing again. He was his final season with the Leafs, went on to the Bruins, but like I think that was it for Scott Stevens.
Yeah, and a few other people too. I remember.
Al McInnes, I think. It was
Ron Francis.
Sorry.
Ryan Miller is the first one that comes up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
James actually reached out to him, and he said, it's too soon for me to tell. I can't process what's happening. I think I need to get clear. I think I need to get clear of the real world issues that surround us, then sit with my wife and have a real discussion of where we're at. You know, people, we never think about these things, and we should more, but there are, especially when you get to Ryan Miller's age, toddlers, kids, wives, many, many, many things to consider when you get back into it. Henrik Lundqvist, New York Rangers.
Oh my God. No way.
James said this. At first, it felt like Lundqvist didn't fit on this list. He's a legend with the Rangers, the only team he's ever played for, and he's got another year left on his contract. But you talk to people around the franchise a little, and it's clear the 3-goalie situation has not been a lot of fun. It certainly sounds like the Rangers may buy out Lundqvist's final year, opening the door for him to either sign somewhere else or hang it up.
Wow.
Crazy.
I just don't think Lundqvist is that guy. I don't think he wants to go to another team.
No, I think he'd retire too. I really do.
Man.
It would be such a shame if he didn't win a cup though. Justin Williams, Carolina Hurricanes, who, you know, honestly, we almost didn't see him again anyway. And it kind of stinks that he waited till January to come back. He got back, and then season's gone.
What are you going to do? Yeah, what do you do?
Mikko Koivu. It's his last year of his deal. And James starts off his little blurb with, yeah, this is probably goodbye.
Damn.
And interestingly, the league would be Koivu-less for the first time since 94-95. Because his older brother.
This is Saku.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun tidbit.
Crazy. Cool stat, right? 25 years of the Koivus.
Wow.
Jay Bouwmeester, I think, was a little bit more obvious, given the
I don't think that's a COVID thing.
Yeah. James said if he doesn't play again, he was 18 at his first NHL training camp. And he, you know, rarely suffered. He's 36, but, you know, with a heart condition, you got to be so careful. It's just different. Your life totally changes. But 17 years in the league without like really major injuries is pretty amazing. Brent Seabrook in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting about this is James says, I'll say this much. He doesn't think it's the end.
Interesting.
Jerome McGinley all over again.
Well,
have retirement forced upon him.
Well, except Seabrook got the 3 cups, right, Jesse?
Jerome's got 0.
Right? You're both evil. You're both evil bastards. You know that? All right?
Very true. Very true. David Backes.
Okay. Can I maybe throw out an unpopular opinion?
Please.
Watching David Backes play this season made me uncomfortable. Like,
there's somebody who probably should have been retired at the end of last season.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about because he sucks, although he's clearly lost a step. Like, he's a depth player in this league, probably 3rd, 4th line, makes $6 million. That's the problem. The problem with David Backes is the amount of brain trauma this guy has suffered over his career, and he took in the last Leafs-Ducks game, he took a huge hit. I think it was from Clifford. And it's one of those ones where, like, I don't know if he missed any games afterward. I don't know if it was diagnosed as a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, that motherboard has taken a lot of blows, dude. Mm-hmm. Watching David Backes play, watching him absorb a hit makes me uncomfortable now.
I just remember in the 18-19 season when the Bruins had to make the decision to healthy scratch him. I was just like, it's about time here. Like, the people are telling you things, and they're putting you on the sidelines because it sounds like you want to be on the ice, but you're not understanding that you shouldn't be. And there's a notice here that you should probably get off the ice. And the fact that he's still playing is probably a problem.
You can't mess with your brain, man. The UFC fighter Junior Dos Santos, please stop giving that guy fights. Like, holy smokes, the amount of – you can only get knocked out so many times. Anyway.
Craig Anderson in Ottawa.
Yeah, that's probably time, eh?
Here's interesting.
Oh, Craig Anderson's like 40, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Well, in his first – he didn't make it – he was in the minors till he was 26, back up till he was 28. Didn't start 100 NHL games in his first 8 years of pro hockey.
Wow.
And then
it's like Tim Thomas.
Yeah, and then from 07 to 08 to 16-17, he had a .919 save percentage over that time.
Awesome.
12th heaviest workload in the league.
Underrated goalie, man. Underrated goalie. Over his career. Like, he wasn't always fantastic, but he had a few masterpiece performances. There was that series between the Avalanche and the Sharks several years ago, not this past year, but it was several years ago, and Anderson was the starter for the Avalanche, and he had something like a 51 save gem.
And then series. Didn't they lose the next 4 games?
Yeah, I think they might have, but
but that gem was great.
Yeah, it was. Well, it showed that. I mean, they were clearly outmatched, right? Like he had this ability to pull a rabbit out of his hat.
Dan Hamhuis, Nashville.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of forgot he was playing.
I know, me too. Because I forgot that he was drafted by Nashville and then went to Vancouver and now is back in Nashville. 37, obviously playing third pairing stuff. But it'd be kind of sad to see him go, but it also seems like it might be time.
How many of these guys, sorry to interrupt your list, but how many of the guys on the list right now are sitting at home being like, retirement's not so bad? Now that they've been forced into this, not to joke on Jerome McGinley, now that they've literally been forced into sitting at home, they're like, I guess I'll just take the more time with my kids and my wife, you know?
See, based on what I saw with Darcy Tucker, I think it would be agony.
Oh, yeah?
Adam makes a very good point there. And also, if this were a lockout, I think more guys would probably call it a career. This is not fun. They're stuck inside. They can't go anywhere. They can't basically enjoy a lot of the things that rich retired people enjoy, going on, trips all over the place. You're stuck in your house. This sucks. They're probably dying to get back on the ice right now, even recreationally. So I feel like fewer players per capita or whatever are going to retire coming out of this than they would a lockout, because this sucks. This is boring. You know what I mean?
It does. And it's to have it go like this kind of sucks. It just does. Ron Hainsey's another guy, number 10 on the list. And I didn't realize this, but he was a 13th overall pick, and he looked like a bad pick and ended up with the expansion Columbus Blue Jackets, from what I understand.
He was always he was one of those guys who, remember how I said Jack John was the first guy who I remember analytics saying was bad? Mm-hmm. Ron Hainsey is one of the first guys I remember analytics saying was good. Yes. Yeah. He was like a big analytics darling. He wasn't always in his mid to late 30s, right? Like, no, like when he was younger, he was a really good player.
But like,
he wasn't always molasses.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
he also like was always that old though. Like, he's an old soul.
He is an old soul, yes, but his body wasn't always that old.
Yeah.
And he was a good player. He was a great example. You know how they say, like, well, great players, they elevate their team. Sometimes good players do genuinely get bad teams for most of their career. Mm-hmm. And Hainsey was kind of one of those guys, man. Like, you couldn't say the Blue Jackets or the Hurricanes for a while there, too. Didn't make the playoffs because of Ron Hainsey. He was good.
He has a cup, though, with Penguins, right?
And that was his first time in the playoffs, though.
Was it really?
It was his first playoff game was the first game of his playoff run with the Penguins. And he was already over 1,000 games into his career or something like that. Or 900
it's interesting.
Games.
You roll through the teams that he was with. So he was with the Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens, and Columbus Blue Jackets when they were expansion. The Atlanta Thrashers / Jets, he was with both teams when they switched. And then the Hurricanes on their upswing. But then they traded him to Pittsburgh, and then he was with Toronto. Ottawa, obviously, not a great team this year, but they needed him around for leadership. But, you look at all those teams, those were all, like, Ron Hainsey was a part of the development of all of those franchises. And now Toronto, Carolina, well, I guess Carolina, Winnipeg, Columbus, they've all been sort of powerhouse teams. So he's left a good legacy.
The Leafs are better for having had Ron Hainsey.
Agreed.
And I wouldn't have even been completely upset if he came back. It was just the top pair. Like, stop. What are you doing?
Yeah. No, it wasn't Ron.
It
was Mike Babcock's usage of Ron Hainsey.
Oh,
Right.
I would love to see Sheldon Keefe's use of Ron Hainsey.
But here's the thing. Ron Hainsey's career in the NHL began before we were in high school.
No.
2001.
No.
Yes.
What?
Jesse, how old were you in 2001?
92 minus 9.
You weren't even at double digits in age.
I was 9 years old.
I was 13.
Think about that.
Absurd.
What?
Crazy. Like that's a long.
There's got to
time.
be like what, less than a handful of guys who have in the league who have played for the Thrashers.
Left. Yeah, I mean Evander Kane was one of them. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, there's one. Yeah.
Ilya Kovalchuk.
There's a bunch of guys on the Jets still, but like just floating around the league. There's not a ton.
No.
Okay.
So the list of players from his draft class who have played more NHL games than him is Justin Williams and Scott Hartnell. That's it.
That's a damn good pick.
Damn.
Good pick. Too bad Montreal couldn't make use of it, but obviously it just wasn't going to work there.
That's a key thing. When I did the trade tree about Pronger, I gave the Oilers more kudos than people gave them for that trade because some of the players involved, like Ladislav Schmid, for example, that's not a great player. But, dude, he played almost 500 games for the organization. There's value in the fact that he actually got into that many games, right? He didn't have to be a Hall of Famer, and he was only part of the deal.
Yep.
Games played is hard, man. It's hard to stay in the league.
Andrew Ladd, New York Islanders.
I keep forgetting he's even in the league.
I know. I keep forgetting he was ever an Islander. And it's funny because that July 1st, 2016.
Awful.
If it hasn't already, it's must go down as probably the worst free agent group ever.
It's
some of the worst money you've ever seen spent.
Unbelievably bad. David Backes, I think, was part of it.
Oh, yeah. And I think, wasn't that the Kyle Okposo deal? And
I think so.
Yeah. And Okposo's case, it's been injury. But
yes, but like that's part of it. Right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit part of it. Although his situation, I think, is different. It's not like a bum knee. I think, wasn't it a brain thing?
Oh, yeah. Like he had, yeah.
There's another guy, like skilled, but every time he gets hit, I'm like, oh, Jesus, get off the ice.
I got the list.
Yeah.
You ready for the list? The July 2016 list?
I got it here too.
List.
Yeah,
I'm going to start at the bottom.
Okay.
And I actually didn't mind this deal when it was signed because he was a bit of an analytics darling. David Schlemko, 4 years, $8.4 million. Dale Weiss. Remember Dale Weiss?
Dutch Gretzky.
Yeah, that's right. 4 years, $9.4 million. The Leafs made the list. No kidding. Matt Martin, 4 years, $10 million.
$10 million. A deal that Lou Lamoriello signed and then later traded for.
James Reimer, 5 years, $17 million. Which didn't look bad at the time because they had Luongo. That's 3.5.
3.4.
Oh, okay.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Which is his number.
This next one is bad. The Troy Brouwer Calgary deal was not a good
Brouwer play.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Then we get into David Backes, 32 years old, 5 years, $30 million.
You're signing a guy till he's 37.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, you could always be Detroit and sign Franz Nielsen, who was the same age, to a 6-year deal worth $31.5 million.
Oh.
Or you could be the Vancouver Canucks, who signed a 31-year-old Louis Eriksson to a 6-year, $36 million.
Nightmare deal. Nightmare.
And then you got, and it just keeps getting better. So then you got the Andrew Ladd deal, 7 years, $38.5 million, 5.5 per year. And then you get into probably the worst one in terms of money spent versus value.
Oh.
Milan Lucic, Edmonton Oilers. 7 years, $42 million.
$6 million per.
And credit to them, they got out from under it.
They did. Yeah, you know what?
Somehow.
True. And I wouldn't. I give Ken Holland all the credit in the world for that one, and then Kyle Okposo also on that list.
Almost all of those deals, like this isn't a hindsight thing. Almost all of those deals sucked the moment they were signed.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like it was when those deals, like I remember the Matt Martin deal, but going, what? I thought the Leafs were going to be analytically inclined.
Yeah. But that was also Stamkos' summer, right? Stamkos,
yes.
Yeah, it was.
Signed his deal, which
was a great deal for the Lightning.
Huge bargain. Huge bargain. The only good one. Like. Yeah, that was a huge bargain. But even Matt Martin, I remember the day it was signed, sort of being like, because the Leafs had a little bit of cap to play with, and being like, okay, I get the purpose of having him, but how is he going to be on this team 3 years from now? Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he wasn't. So it was. You had
somebody tell you that he wouldn't be.
Well, yeah, and then he wasn't.
Yeah, okay. Like the person was like, calm down, Steve, don't worry, they won't be. And somebody in the know was like, he won't be here in 4 years. And he wasn't. Number 12 on the list of people we may have seen the last of, Jimmy Howard.
Yo, that guy.
Do you have the numbers?
Talk about him, Adam. Talk about him.
Well, what do you want me to tell you?
The numbers. Whatever you got in front of you.
So it's been a tough year in Detroit for Jimmy Howard. Now, I want to throw something out there. In my EA Sports NHL Be a Pro career, I was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks, who decided to retain neither Robin Lehner, well, they couldn't, I guess, because they traded him, nor Corey Crawford. They signed Jimmy Howard. And I have some issues with my Be a Player career anyway. But Jimmy Howard is much better in the game than what it worked out to be in Detroit this year. In 27 games in Detroit this year, Jimmy Howard had a .420 goals against average.
Cool. Is it legal in Michigan?
He went 2-23-2.
Oh.
Say that slowly.
Say the record.
2-23-2 for
2 wins, 23 losses.
25 really.
And he played 20, so that means he played 27 games and he got a total of 6 points out of a possible 56. And his save percentage is an .882.
Okay, he won.
Detroit was bad.
Detroit was bad. Jimmy Howard won his first game of the season. A gem against the Nashville Predators, 42 saves on 45 shots. His next win, so that was on October 5th, then he lost 5 straight games before beating the Edmonton Oilers, stopping 32 of 33 on October 29th. That was his final win.
He hasn't won.
He has not won since October 29th. If he retires now, he will retire having his last win in 2019.
And he didn't even win against the 4 games they won against Montreal. That was all Jonathan Bernier, right?
Bernier's been good.
He has, yeah.
Has Bernier been good, or has Bernier been better than Howard?
What are Bernier's numbers?
He's been Bernier, which he's been career average, but that's really good for Detroit. Let me pull him up. Jonathan Bernier.
Why do I keep looking at my phone? I got a computer in front of me.
This is pretty good on a bad team. 46 games, 15 wins, 22 losses, 3 overtime losses.
Man, on Detroit? Not
that's
bad. Good. That's good.
A goals against average of .295, which is about 20 points higher than his career average, although last year it was a .316, which was way worse.
.295 versus .420.
Yes, and
it's no shot.
A .907 save percentage.
You got to score 5 goals to win a Jimmy Howard game.
Yep.
And you're the last place team in the league. Okay, have fun.
Can't score.
Have fun. Good luck.
Yeah, so it might
be shot.
By the way, I want to throw this out there. My EA NHL team kind of sucks. So I've been playing, but I boosted myself up to All-Star, and somehow I made the Chicago Blackhawks, and I'm their number 1 center in my first year. And my rating is a 71, and I'm on a line with I'm on a line with DeBrincat and Kane. And here's the problem: I keep getting hit. I've had 2 concussions and a hernia, and of the 55 games that this season I'm supposed to have played, I've only played in 6.
What are you?
Oh my God!
Rookie,
I keep getting injured.
What's your game mode?
It's be a pro.
No. I mean, like the gameplay. Is it the rookie?
Difficulty?
All-star.
Yeah, the difficulty. It's on
All-Star.
Yeah.
All-Star's hard, man.
That doesn't make sense.
On Be a Pro, it's hard. No, that happened to me. I haven't played Be a Pro in a while, but my rookie season, I couldn't stay healthy. And I played
it doesn't make sense that they put you on the first line.
No, it doesn't make sense
weird.
that I'm not with Rockford or wherever.
No, you shouldn't be playing well if you're 76 overall and be and on All-Star.
I'm good at the game. Like I can put up points and stuff. And like I said last episode, there are certain players in that game that are cheat codes. Patrick Kane's one of them, so you just feed him the puck and he scores. But it's like I can't score a goal. Like it's impossible to score a goal.
Yeah,
like, it's not happening.
You're 76 and you're a rookie and you
71.
shouldn't be. Sorry, 71. You shouldn't be on the first line.
Yeah. You shouldn't be ahead of Dylan Strome, let alone Jonathan Taves.
No.
Like,
no.
What?
It's weird.
Holy.
It's wild. It's crazy.
All right,
number 13 on the list is Trevor Daley.
Oh my God, he should have finished playing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where is he now?
Yeah,
Detroit.
Oh, okay.
And like he's noticeably bad on the league's worst team. He's done.
Yeah.
Remember when he was on
contract?
the Stars? I always thought he looked okay when he was on the Stars.
He was. He was very good.
Oh, dude, he used to be amazing. He used to be a sick NHL video game player.
Yeah.
Like just a water bug. But I asked, it's funny working with former players because I go, what's the thought process there? Why did he sign that 3-year deal in Detroit? And someone goes, well, the millions of dollars.
Yeah.
They gave him, I think it was $9 million. It was, what was
over
it?
3 years, yeah.
3 times 3?
Who cares?
Well,
Yeah.
He won 2 cups in a row with the Penguins and then cashed out. Good.
And you probably figure, I'll get traded. And worst case scenario, $9 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And living in a pretty affordable place like, Detroit or Ann Arbor, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's great.
Or wherever the hell you want because you make $9 million.
Right. But $3 million in Toronto buys you a whole lot less than it would in Detroit.
Live in Hawaii and commute. Like,
yeah,
you got super villain money. Like, do whatever you want. Live on a boat in Lake Michigan. Like, do whatever you want.
Who is, Steve, the defenseman from the 2004 draft who has played the 4th most amount of games? Okay.
2004 draft.
And I'm going to give you the 3 names who are ahead of him.
That's Ovechkin and Malkin.
Yeah, that's
draft,
the year,
yeah.
the 2004 draft. The names before him are Mike Green, Alex Edler, Alex Goligoski. Who is, from that draft, who has played the 4th most amount of games from the 2004 draft?
Who did this player play most of their games with?
I am not going to tell you anything.
I'm not going to tell you. Okay.
Actually, this player is not the type of player that would have a name synonymous with that. With certain, like with Alex Pietrangelo, you'd pick a guy. With Chris Pronger, you could imagine some of the to me, when I think Chris Pronger, and I know that St. Louis fans are going to hate this, but I either think of like him with Niedermeyer or him, I guess, with Scott Stevens back in the day, or they were traded. I don't even know. But like St. Louis fans would think of Chris Pronger differently. But I think of Chris Pronger on Anaheim with Scott Niedermeyer, right? This is a player that wouldn't have a defense. It was like we're putting you with whoever is also on that line with you.
I don't know if he's this old. Jeff Petrie?
Not Jeff Petrie. And this player is not that old. 33.
4th most games played, eh?
Yeah.
It's not Jeff Petrie. I don't know. I'm struggling.
Roman Polak.
Get out! Wow.
Crazy, right?
There's another guy, man.
That's good.
You can't hate on the amount of games he's played.
No.
How many games has he played?
I'll have to look that up.
He's been around. See, if you had said he played most of his games with the St. Louis Blues, I might have guessed him.
Okay.
Maybe. It's been a long time since Polak played with the Blues.
Yeah. He's played 806 games.
Wow.
It's a lot of games.
And it's unreal. He's still playing. It's unreal. The injury he got against the Capitals, that should have been it. He shattered his leg.
Yeah. And then he got back.
Couldn't walk. I remember we did that was a Dangle Navy at the Marlies game.
Yes.
When we found out that he signed his deal.
Is that the one where you guys rode the tricycle at intermission?
I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah, that was fun.
And people thought that was like because it was a sponsored thing. No, we were buying. I think Adam was looking at a jersey.
Yeah, they're like, "Hey, you look like fans."
Yeah,
it was when we first walked in, right?
Yeah, we're fans. Yeah.
And Adam's struggling because his handlebars are like bent around.
Yeah,
also, if you want to know what we're talking about, you can go to our YouTube channel and it's up there. The full.
Oh yeah.
Adam
what would you type in?
Oh, tricycle Steve Dangle tricycle. If you just type that into YouTube, you'll find it.
Or Adam Wilde tricycle or whatever.
Well, yeah. I never name search whoever finished second in a race.
Oh, spoiler.
Okay, that was good. That was good.
But I don't know. Do you type in Ben Johnson Sky Dome? Or Donovan Bailey, baby. Donovan Bailey.
Jonathan Ericsson is the last one to round out this list. He was. It's funny. James says at his very best, he was a modest second pair type. And that was what landed him an ill-advised 6-year, $4.25 million contract in 2014 that is just finishing up now. So he signed his deal around the time we started this podcast.
Horrendous.
That's insane.
And wasn't he the last overall pick his year?
I don't know.
I think he was.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, the fact that he's played as much as he has, good for him. I don't think if Detroit had been a great team through those years, Jonathan Ericsson's not on that team. Like, he doesn't make that team. Jonathan Ericsson is not, especially towards the end, a player that a really, really good hockey team probably has on the thing. But you got to give him credit. And here's the thing. Don't lock up middling guys to that much money for that long. Like, he's 36. He was 30 when he signed that deal. 6-year deal. 6-year deals for 30-year-olds are going to be tough. And it makes me wonder if 5-6 years from now, how long did Jake Muzzin sign for? 4 years?
4.
Okay. Not bad. I'll take that. But, like, imagine he got in 5 or 6. Jake Muzzin's on this list in 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You know what I was about to say, and I'm glad I checked. I was going to say, part of the reason Jonathan Ericsson lasted that long, right-handed shot. Nope.
He's a lefty.
Just another lefty. He was he's been on the Red Wings so long that if I'm not mistaken, remember the HBO 24/7 where Babcock was losing his mind because he was noted being a big, having right-handed guys on the right and left-handed guys on the left. He had 6 left-handed D because everyone was hurt and he was losing his mind.
Well, Mike Babcock
3 guys playing their offside.
Mike Babcock would rather lose games than play people on their offhand. Like, he was way too inflexible about that.
Unless your name's Ron Hainsey for
some reason.
Years.
Insane.
Mike Babcock was the I before E except after C of coaches.
But sometimes Y.
Yeah, sometimes.
Like rules.
But sometimes Hainsey.
Rules that broke for no good reason. Like, just, oh, God.
Yep.
Tie goes to the veteran unless I don't really like you, and then fuck you.
Yeah. Unless I decide I don't like you. You don't have to give me a reason. Right.
Yeah, unless from the day I set eyes on you, Jason Spezza. Like, anyway.
Jason Spezza won that one.
He sure did.
Honorable mentions on this list. Mike Smith in Edmonton. Andy Green in New York with the Islanders, who is not a Devil anymore, which is really weird. Derek England, who I did not think was still playing, but he's still playing in Vegas. Justin Abdelkader in Detroit, which, you have to think. And Trevor Lewis in Los Angeles.
Trevor Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. He was always a guy who he was a first-round pick. He never quite achieved the level that he should have. Mm-hmm. He was always kind of a depth guy, but he was always a guy who I remember he was one of the early guys. Analytics people were like, listen, he maybe doesn't have the high-end skill of a lot of other guys, but he's a great depth player, good defensively.
Yeah. So I think that's all the hockey stuff we're going to do for today because there's something you should check out, though. Sportsnet's got a big read. And I'm going like Sportsnet. They've got some great content out.
Sportsnet.
And we have no affiliation with them. Steve does, but the rest of us, But I do want to say this: they do a great breakdown of the 1919 pandemic, the Spanish flu. And it's a fascinating time in history because there's so much going on. And guys who actually played in the Stanley Cup final, which ended up being canceled, ended up passing away. Like, it's crazy. Wow. So it's a crazy story. You should absolutely check it out and read it. And it's just a flashback to a completely different time when the world had just got itself out of a war and there were no medical supplies and everybody's over in Europe and there's no doctors around. Like, you want to talk about overwhelming the health system. How about when all the doctors are on another continent? You know what I mean? Like, it's a crazy thing, and you should absolutely check it out because it's just a great deep dive back into our history. And a little bit crazy that it's happening 100 years almost to the month later.
Yeah.
So do we have time for a little press conference, Jesse? Do you have a question lined up?
We have one question.
Okay.
If you give me a second, I'll pull it up right.
I can.
Press conference.
It is from Stephen Vogel, Meth Shin on Twitter.
Okay. Hi, Stephen.
Adam's thoughts on Rommel. Rommel.
Rommel, like the
Rommel.
Yeah, wasn't he
the Desert Fox?
All right, Adam. This is your time to shine. Let's hear it.
Okay. Let me preface this by saying any German officer from the Second World War has to be viewed under the scope of the Nazi Party. There's no way around that. You have to look at that. And
so this is a Nazi? I don't know who this is.
Yeah, if it's spelled Rommel, Rommel. Yeah. So this is a Nazi. I mean, I
recognized it right away. Yeah.
And the thing is that what the difference between the First World War German army and the Second World War is the First World War army is an army. The Second World War in the officer class is oftentimes political appointments and an army, and that's a big difference. So they wanted hardcore Nazis in there. There were guys in there like Heinz Guderian who were Heinz Guderian was a tank commander. He was one of the major reasons why France fell so quickly, and he pioneered what tank technology and tactics became, and is well studied today by all armies that have tanks. He was a career officer, so he was going to fight for Germany no matter who was in power. Rommel's, I believe, a little bit different. He was a guy that was very, very talented and did a lot with a little. You have to remember that Italy fought this war too, and
poorly.
One of the things that Mussolini was, that pushed him into power was he wanted to restore Italian pride and Italian nationalism and rah rah rah, and he wanted to recreate the Roman Empire. That was what Mussolini's thing was. So they invaded like Ethiopia. And they have these gigantic guns going up against, tribal people who do not have gigantic guns. Maybe they've got rifles. Maybe the rifles are 30 years old. And so they're fighting each other. And so the Italians kind of win that in a walk. Abyssinia, I believe, is the name of the place that they invaded. Anyway, long story short, the reason that the Italians are in the desert, which we'll get to Rommel in a second, is because they're trying to recreate the Roman Empire. And they're trying to conquer along that coast, like with where Carthage would have been, which I think is present day Libya, right up into like where French Morocco would have been. And the Italian army, when it has to go face to face with England, because England was trapped on its island. So Winston Churchill said, okay, well, let's attack somewhere else. We can't go into France. We don't have the support. We need the Americans for that. The Americans were still a couple years away. So they put British troops in Northern Africa, and the Italians just folded. They just fell apart.
Not known for their fighting prowess.
Yeah, well, they were at one point in history, but just not in this particular era.
Nope.
And so they were not well supplied, not well put together, whatever. And then the Germans have to go in and kind of save their bacon. And Rommel is not given enough men, not given enough support, and was constantly short on fuel, and was still able to push the British to the absolute breaking point. And then I think, because the high command of the German army was basically Hitler and his goons. They were just maniacs, and they're like
doing meth.
Yeah, doing meth,
literally doing meth.
Yes. And
medically, doctor prescribed meth.
Yes. as was a lot of the population too. And they were complete maniacs and so hardcore. Like, Rommel would say, listen, I need more support. And the Germans would say, well, you're not going to get, or like high command would say, you're not going to get it. And he'd say, okay, well then we need to retreat because we're going to lose all these guys. And the high command would say, well, listen, no, die for your country. And so I think Rommel ended up getting very sick because of stress. And I don't remember specifically how he died, but he was known as the Desert Fox because he was impossible to find, and he did very, very damaging things to England and their bigger army and a better supplied army, and almost took the British right out of Africa, except for when General Montgomery on the British part was. When he was promoted, then it was better and whatever. So it's a very complicated, that's one of the parts about World War II, especially from a North American perspective, that's barely covered because Canada wasn't involved, because Canada was in other theaters. Our Canadian involvement at that point was really just getting supplies to England through the Atlantic crossing. And being guinea pigs in Dieppe. Yes, that too. But that wasn't even until 1942, right? That's a year later.
Yeah.
And the Americans weren't involved, so there's no movies made about it. If the Americans had been involved in that, there'd be like a billion movies made about it. The Americans were eventually involved in Northern Africa, but at that point, it was just the British and Italians and the Germans. So you don't hear about that as much, but it's a very El Alamein and some of these other incredible scenes. Like, can you imagine, like, you're fighting and it's 50 degrees in the daytime.
Celsius.
And then it goes to 0 at night because it's a desert. So it freezes at night. You can't imagine and these guys are wearing big 100-pound bags of equipment and they're marching. And, it's just it's a crazy, crazy thing when you read about it.
If you're talking about what I think you're talking about, my aunt by marriage's father, he was a desert rat. Was that what you're talking about?
Probably. I don't know. I wouldn't know enough about it to know if that's. I would assume that a desert rat would be just that. Yeah,
I think so. But the story goes, he had his boots on for 30 straight days.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Insane.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. And there's a whole sector of World War I even that is completely fought in the Middle East with a country, the Ottoman Empire, with the British, forget just Gallipoli. There was other things too. And no one's talking about it over here. Yet, ask people from India how they feel about that campaign. Ask people from Egypt. Both, the British Empire at that point covered, controlled both of those countries. So you had troops from, I believe, the Punjab, because they were where the British tended to pull a lot of their soldiers from, and the Egyptian army that was British controlled and British officered, fighting to work their way into what is now Jordan, Saudi Arabia, all Syria, Israel, like all of those countries. It's a crazy. The whole desert sphere of both wars is just such a fascinating thing that we know so little about because we are so dominated by American pop culture, and they make movies about Americans. Like
there is a reason it's called the World War.
Right.
Yeah.
And I downloaded Battlefield 1, which is the World War I Battlefield version, right? And they've got a World War II called, I think, Battlefield 5. And it's kind of sad because I love that history. I don't love the events, but I'm fascinated by the history. And the thing that bothers me so much about it is, yes, it's a world war. Yes, it's hard for every country to be represented. But it really bothers me that every event depicted in the original game, is starring Americans. Right. And it's not because I don't like Americans. It's not because they didn't come in and really save the Allies in 1917, 1918, and really just 1918. It's because there was 3.5 years of fighting before that, and there were French troops from Algiers. There were British Indian troops. There were Canadian troops. There were Newfoundlanders, and Newfoundland was not a part of Canada.
You're doing a disservice to the actual history.
Yes, and the whole point of that game, if you play it, is it's so beautifully done. They do such a great job in telling the stories in the actual campaign. Even on the multiplayer online, they talk about the history, which I so appreciate. But it's so America-centric that it eliminates 3.5 years of a 4.5-year war. And so it's that part of it really bugs me. And so I know that sounds really stupid and I shouldn't care, and at least they're trying to tell the history, but that's a major criticism for me. And I guess I'm being a little bit patriotic, but Canadians played a major role in 1915 and 1916, especially, well, as the war went on, a bigger and bigger role. The Australians, thankfully, at least, are like the Australians and New Zealanders are represented in they do a Gallipoli sort of campaign thing where they have, an Anzac story, but it's annoying to me. And here's the other part, the part that I hate. There's nothing representative of the German, Austrian, Hungarian, Ottoman, any of that. There's no other side. And if you're going to tell that story, you can't, especially in World War I, everybody was being a jackass. Everyone. Yes. Everyone was beating their chest. That's how they got into the war in the first place. So I understand not wanting to tell something from a Nazi perspective. I get that. I totally get that in a World War II game. I get that. But how can you eliminate Germany, Austria, all of the Middle East and not have that perspective? And that really bothers me too. There's no, I know that there's a Russian expansion. I haven't bought all the expansions for the game, so maybe it gets into some of that. But there was every ethnicity was, there's no Japanese part of it too. The Japanese were a part of World War I. People forget that. They were on the Allied side. Yep. There's no perspective from other than this sort of small microcosm. And I know that they tried their best to include all races. The Russia had a women's brigade that just sprang up and started, and then they went to the front. And so I believe the expansion pack is about that. But I think they did it a disservice. And I think they leave people with a very America-centric and not really a historically accurate picture of what happened. And that's what they were trying to do. Sorry, rants about something stupid that no one cares about.
I love history, and I don't think there's any bit of history I could do off the top of my head the way you do everything.
Well, was that boring? I hope I didn't. It just bothers me.
There's a reason we weren't talking.
Right.
I was like,
well, I don't see. I don't know. I don't know how you can have a war that kills, what was it, 60 million, or sorry, was it 60 million in World War II? I don't know how you could kill, like, let's say it was 20 million soldiers, I think, or something in the First World War, which is a crazy number. And then half of them are just not represented at all. There's no story.
I still, like, I've listened to a lot about World War I, and I don't have a clear picture as to why it started. Other
that's
than
that's been debated ever since.
Yeah, like it seemed like there were a number of countries that didn't like each other, but there was no real reason for them to go to war. No. There's countries in the world that don't like each other now, and they're not at war. Like
I think at the heart of it, it's a foreign policy thing and it's a government system thing. So the way we conduct foreign policy, we have all this
new technology, and let's just see what it does.
Yeah, but I think ultimately nobody really wanted it. It was sort of the foreign policy at the time was empire-based. Well, we need to grab as much land as we can and subjugate all these people, and we need to be powerful and rich, which is still sort of the case. But now it's done through diplomacy. Back then it was chest beating, and you had a lot less democracy. Like in Germany in World War I, it was the Kaiser, the Caesar, the king, who was related to the British royal family and the Russian royal family. He used to write the Russian Tsar, and he called him his cousin Nicky. Yep. And then they went to war.
There was one thing I remember, at least from the German side, where basically Russia had a much bigger population, but they were so much further behind technologically. Mm-hmm. And some of the advice was, it seemed like there was going to be a war at some point.
Yes.
And under the advice of someone, I can't remember who it was, they were basically like, okay, listen, if you go to war now, there's a good chance you win. If you go to war in 10 years, Russia will kill you.
Yeah, that was based on railroads.
Railroads, right.
Yeah. So when Russia was building up railroads along the what had been like Poland, right? I mean, Poland had been partitioned at that point, but along that area, because they thought a war with Germany was coming. So both sides sort of were like responsible in that. It's just a bunch of dumb leaders being dumb, and it became a lot of governments that system was outdated. You couldn't run the world based on kings and queens anymore. It just wouldn't work. And because the cost of that is so deadly, was so bad and so ruinous to the world that it brought down a lot of governments. And you know what's a really interesting part of history? The 3 years after World War I in Germany. If you want a fascinating piece of history, just politically, oh my God, crazy, just crazy stuff.
So I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Oh.
So next episode,
I'm sorry,
everyone DM me or at me your next question for Adam's history corner of the podcast.
Sorry, that devolved into a really stupid rant.
In transition, so we talked about the Eastern Front, Russia, Alexander Barabanov. So the Leafs might sign Alex. Are we going to get into him, or are we done?
We're done. We're done. I mean, we could talk about him, but listen.
Do you have something to say?
We got weeks to talk about Barabanov.
There's not an abundance of things to say. If you want, you can watch the video on my channel. Really quick, Igor Aranko said that it sounds like there's a good chance Alexander Barabanov, he's a KHL player with SKA St. Petersburg. Good chance he signs with Toronto. There's also a chance he might sign with the Arizona Coyotes. He was a member of the 2018 gold medal winning Russian hockey team at that Olympics that
definitely count.
Well, yeah, sure, sort of. There were no NHL players there. He was one of the youngest players on that Russian team. All the players who were younger than him, big things are expected of them. Mikhail Grigorenko is within a month of his age, but there are rumors with lots of top Russian prospects. Oh, this guy's birth certificate, that guy's birth certificate. The noise is the loudest with Grigorenko, so I'm always weary of him. He's listed on HockeyDB as 5'8", like 160 pounds. Everywhere else, Elite Prospects, I think the KHL site has him at 5'9", 190. Mm-hmm. So he's got some beef to him.
That's not a close discrepancy.
No, not at all. 30 pounds. 30 pounds is a lot.
And a couple inches.
Yeah. So he sounds like Trevor Moore, kind of. And he's going to turn 26 this summer. So you're getting a guy. You're not getting someone that you're going to some assembly required. You're getting he is what he is. Yeah. There's going to be adjustments to the North American game, just like Ilya Mikheyev, but he is what he is. Don't expect him. Oh, he put up 20 points this season. That means he's going to put up 40 in a couple of years. That's not it. And then I'm trying to think of other stuff that I noted about him. Forward. Mm-hmm. Wish he was a defenseman, but he's not. So.
Yeah. Well,
is what it is. You still need cheap forwards. I know a lot of Leaf fans roll their eyes, but like, if you're going to have the expensive forwards, you got to have the cheap ones too.
Yeah, so when there are games, you'll need the forwards.
Yeah, and there was a famous general named Barabanov. Was there not, Adam?
I don't think so.
I made that up.
Maybe, I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Someone's actually, ironically. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, I'm sure there's people that could have given you a much more detailed description of all the shit I just talked about. So I
can't wait till the next episode.
All right, guys, love you. We'll see you Wednesday. Thanks so much for listening. There's more hockey stuff to talk about, but it's not all that interesting, I'll be honest with you. And we'll see you then. Thank you so much until then for listening. And please do not forget to tell us your stories, all the good news stuff, the people that deserve shout-outs. We all want to hear. We're going to pick one each episode, and we're going to roll through. It's about the humanity of this. It's an ugly time, but we're all going to get through this together. Thank you so much.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Brought to you by Panago Pizza. Order at panago.com and stuff your face with deliciousness. Connection complete.